Hello aviators, welcome back to Alpha to Sky. In this video, we'll solve a few questions on the freedoms of air and the Tokyo Convention. In the previous video, we had covered the theory part. So if you haven't watched that already, you can watch it here and you can come back when you are confident. Let's get started. So these questions will be based on the application of these freedoms of air and the Tokyo Convention, and that is how it will be in the exam also. So the first question is, an airline from country A flies passengers from country A to country B and returns back. So the airline is registered in country A, right, and it flies passengers from country A to B and returns back. This is an example of the first freedom of air, second freedom of air, third freedom of air, or the fifth freedom of air. This is a quite simple one, right? So this is the third freedom of air. A flight from Singapore to London makes a technical stop for refueling in Dubai, but does not embark or disembark passengers. Which freedom of the air applies for the Dubai stop? So there was a flight which stops in Dubai for refueling, only refueling, it's not embarking or disembarking passengers. So which freedom of air allows this kind of situation? The options are first freedom, second freedom, fourth, or the fifth freedom. So if you remember, the first freedom allows us to fly over another country without landing. Second freedom allows us to land for technical purposes, which could be refueling, maintenance, etc. So this particular situation comes under the second freedom of air. Now, a US-based airline operates a scheduled flight from New York to London and onward from London to Paris, carrying passengers between London and Paris. This operation requires dash, or which freedom of air? So this particular airline, it is a US-based airline. Okay, it is running scheduled flights from New York to London and onward from London to Paris, right? So we need to tell which freedom of air is utilized here. Is it only the third and fourth freedom rights? Is it the fifth freedom rights, seventh freedom rights, or the ninth freedom rights? So if you remember, the fifth freedom of air is the one which allows an airline to operate flights from a second and third country only if its registration country is part of that route. So in this case, in this particular scenario, the airline is a US based airline. So since New York is part of its route, so that is why it is able to operate flights from London to Paris. So basically it's going from New York to London and then to Paris. And it is able to operate the flights from London to Paris because New York is part of the route. So that is what was discussed in the fifth freedom of air. So the correct answer is the fifth freedom rights. If a Qatar Airways aircraft flies from Doha to Madrid, picks up new passengers and flies them onward from Madrid to Mexico City, this exercise is based on. Again, a similar scenario. So it's flying from Doha to Madrid, picks up new passengers and then flies them onward from Madrid to Mexico City. So options are, is it the fifth freedoms of air, seventh freedom of air, ninth freedom of air, or the sixth freedom of air? Again, it's a similar scenario. So since it's country of registration, since it's a Qatar Airways and Doha is part of the route, that is why it is able to carry passengers between two other countries, right? So the correct answer is fifth freedom of air. Now these questions might be little confusing, but it becomes very easy with practice. So you just need to read the questions carefully, understand the scenario, and then answer. You should not hurry to answer the questions. Okay. The first freedom of air allows an aircraft to what? We just discussed this in the previous questions. Is it overfly a foreign country without landing, land for refueling but not for passengers, embark passengers in a foreign country, or operate domestic flights in a foreign country? Now, operating domestic flights in a foreign country is known as cabotage, right? And the first freedom of air does not talk about that. The first freedom of air is a very basic freedom of air, which is an aircraft is allowed to overfly a foreign country. Foreign country meaning the country which is not the country of registration of that aircraft. So it can overfly that country without landing. So that is what the first freedom of air talks about. Next, under the Tokyo Convention, jurisdiction over an offense committed on board an aircraft primarily belongs to which country, basically? So there was an offense committed on board an aircraft. The jurisdiction or the right to act over that offense belongs to which country? Okay, the options are the country where the offense occurred, the state of registry of that aircraft, the state where the aircraft lands, or the International Civil Aviation Organization. So whenever an offense is committed on board, the primary jurisdiction belongs to the country of registration of that aircraft, right? So if the aircraft is registered in India, then India has the primary jurisdiction of that offense which was committed on board. So the correct answer is the state of registry of the aircraft. During a flight, a passenger becomes unruly and violent. According to the Tokyo Convention, the commander of the aircraft cannot take any action until landing, has the authority to restrain the passenger, must inform the authorities only after landing, or needs approval from air traffic controller to act. So as part of the Tokyo Convention, the commander of the aircraft was given some authorities, right? So based on the offense that was committed on board, he has the authority to take some actions as per the Tokyo Convention. Okay. So whenever something like this happens, he has the authority to restrain the passenger. Okay. So he has to restrain the passenger to maintain the safety and discipline of the aircraft, the safety of other passengers. So he has the right to restrain the passenger until landing, and upon landing he has to inform the authorities. Now that is upon landing, okay, and if required they should also inform to the ATC about these things. So the correct answer is he has the authority to restrain the passenger. The next question is, an aircraft registered in India is flying over international waters when an offense occurs. According to the Tokyo Convention, the applicable jurisdiction is dash. The nearest country, the country of registry, which is India, is it the ICAO or the United Nations? Again, the same thing. Whenever an offense is happening on an aircraft, the jurisdiction, the primary jurisdiction is belongs to the country of registration of that aircraft. In this case, the country of registration is India. So the primary jurisdiction is applicable to the country of registry, that is in India. Under the Tokyo Convention, if an aircraft commander delivers an offender to authorities upon landing, the receiving state dash. Okay. First option is obligated to prosecute the offender, may refuse to accept the offender, is obliged to consider the evidence but prosecution is optional, must deport the offender immediately. So under the Tokyo Convention, the aircraft commander has the authority to restrain the passenger. right? Whoever is part of the offense, who has committed the offense on board. So the aircraft commander has the authority to restrain that person until landing, and on landing they have to um, hand over the person to the authorities, right? In this question they're asking what is the next step that has to be done by the receiving state, whether it is whether the Tokyo Convention has any rules that are applicable to the receiving state, or what are the actions that it should take. So now the receiving state has its own rules and regulations, right? The commander had the authority only till landing, right? So the prosecution depends on the rules and regulations of that particular state, right? That is why they are obliged to consider the evidence, because it was committed on board and reported. So they are obliged to consider the evidence, but under the Tokyo Convention there is no such force applicable on them, on the receiving state, to prosecute. So they are obliged to consider the evidence, but prosecution is optional, right? Next question is, the Tokyo Convention applies to dash only domestic flights within a country, all international flights where the aircraft is registered in an ICAO member state, only flights operated by airlines with special permits. So one thing you have to be careful is that when going through the options, do not hurry. Do not go for an answer immediately. Go through all the options and then decide which one is correct, right? For this case, you might think the answer is all international flights, right? That may not be the 100% correct answer, right? So that is why you need to go through all the options and then decide. Okay, so Tokyo Convention applies to the international flights, but then since it requires it talks about the jurisdiction of the country and the primary jurisdiction and those things, so that is why it is considered for international flights where the aircraft is registered in an ICAO member state. So if a country is an ICAO member state and the flight is part of that country, then only the Tokyo Convention applies. Next question. A Singapore Airlines aircraft registered in Singapore is flying from Singapore to London. Okay, the aircraft is registered in Singapore. It is flying to London. Over Germany, a passenger assaults another passenger. Okay, so the crime committed on board was when the aeroplane was flying over Germany. Who has the initial jurisdiction? Okay, this question might look tricky, but it's a very simple one. Okay, so three things: aircraft is registered in Singapore. Okay, it was flying to London. The crime was committed over Germany. Okay, so when a crime is committed on board, the primary jurisdiction belongs to the country of registration. This is what you need to remember. The most of the questions that we'll get from this chapter will be around this particular thing. Okay, so now let's look at the options. Who has the initial jurisdiction? Is it Germany? Is it Singapore, the UK, or ICAO? So it's clearly Singapore, because it's a country of registration of that aircraft. Under the Tokyo Convention, which of the following is a lawful action by the aircraft commander? Okay, under the Tokyo Convention, the aircraft commander has certain authority to restrain the person when there is something committed on board, any crime, any offense committed on board. Okay, so which is a lawful action that was committed, that was taken by the aircraft commander? First option is restraining a passenger to prevent an offense, imposing a monetary fine mid-flight, confiscating passports of all passengers, landing at a different airport without ATC approval. Now, even if you don't know the exact answer, you can reject few of the options very easily. For example, the last one, which is landing at a different airport without ATC approval, that's not possible. Confiscating passports of all passengers? No, the aircraft commander has no rights, no authority to confiscate passports of the passengers, and not even imposing a monetary fine on any passenger mid-flight. The only thing that he can do is restraining a passenger to prevent an offense. So if he feels there is an offense committed by that passenger, or is going to commit that that offense, then he has the authority to restrain the passenger under Tokyo Convention. The correct answer is the first one. Next question. During an international flight, a passenger commits a crime while the aircraft is flying over the territory of country A. The aircraft is registered in country B. Who has the primary jurisdiction under the Tokyo Convention? Again, this seems like a big question, too many scenarios, but it's not. It's a very simple one. Whenever an offense is committed on board, the primary jurisdiction belongs to the state of registration, is what we need to remember. The options are country A, where the offense occurred; country B, state of registry aircraft. Both country A and country B share jurisdiction equally. ICAO decides based on the severity of the offense. Right? So the correct answer is country B, because country B is the state of registration of that aircraft. Now you might get confused here, because in most of the questions we saw that the first country that is mentioned in the question is generally the country of registration, right? But here they have kind of reversed it to mention that aircraft is flying over country A, but the registered country is B. The country of registration is B, right? So you need to look for those kind of things and choose the correct answer. The Tokyo Convention applies to dash. All flights, whether domestic or international. Only international flights, provided both departure and arrival countries are parties to the convention. International flights where the aircraft is registered in a country that is a party to the convention. Only international flights that pass over international waters. So any convention under the ICAO applies to those countries, or those flights from those countries which are part of the ICAO itself, right? If a country is not part of the ICAO, you cannot expect them to follow these conventions, right? So the correct answer here is third, which is international flights where the aircraft is registered in a country that is party to the convention, because the Tokyo Convention gives the primary jurisdiction to the state of registration or the country of registration of that aircraft, right? And that is why the country of registration should be part of the convention or part of the ICAO. Right? Only then the Tokyo Convention applies. The Tokyo Convention does not talk about the departure or arrival countries. It mostly talks about the country of registration. Next, an aircraft registered in country X is on an international flight. So X is the country of registration, first thing. Second, a passenger commits an offense, but the aircraft makes an emergency landing in a country that is not a party to the Tokyo Convention. Now this is a different question, right? So aircraft makes an emergency landing in a different country, and that country is not part of the Tokyo Convention. So what is the obligation of the receiving country? So what is the receiving country required to do? They are still obliged to accept the offender and consider legal action. They can refuse to accept the offender because they are not a party to the convention. They must inform ICAO and let ICAO handle the case, or the offender automatically becomes free due to the lack of jurisdiction. Now offense has happened, right? So the offender cannot become free because he committed the offense on board, right? So the commander of the aircraft will be reporting to the authority upon landing. Since the Tokyo Convention does not apply over any country which is not part of the Tokyo Convention itself or the ICAO, so that is why any rules mentioned in the Tokyo Convention is not applicable over those countries. It's that simple, right? So these countries, they can refuse to accept the offender, okay, because they're not party to the convention. The correct answer is the second one. Okay, next question. Which of the following actions by the aircraft commander exceeds the authority granted under the Tokyo Convention? We know that the commander has certain authorities under the Tokyo Convention. So which one of these following exceeds the authority that is granted? Let's see. The first option is restraining a passenger who poses a danger to the flight, requesting assistance from passengers to restrain an unruly person, imposing a financial penalty on a disruptive passenger mid-flight, and delivering the offender to authorities upon landing. Okay. So restraining a passenger who poses a danger, this is not exceeding the authority. This is exactly the authority that is granted to the commander, right? He has the authority to restrain a passenger to maintain the safety and discipline of the passengers and the flight. The second one, requesting assistance from passengers to restrain an unruly person. So like in every scenario, the commander might not be able to restrain that passenger all by himself, right? So he can request assistance from other passengers to restrain this particular person. So that is also part of the authority, and there is nothing wrong in that. The third one, imposing financial penalty, that is not part of the authority granted to aircraft commander. He does not have that authority, right? And delivering the offender to authorities upon landing is what he is supposed to do when the aircraft lands, right? So the answer here is imposing a financial penalty on a disruptive passenger. So this is exceeding the authority that is granted under the Tokyo Convention. Awesome, we did it. We solved so many questions today. Don't worry if you have got few of them wrong. You can always refer to the previous video, go through the theory, and then come back when you are ready. Keep practicing and you will eventually get there. And do like, share and subscribe to show your support and give your feedback, right? Remember, the hardest part of becoming a pilot is not the training or the exams. It is convincing yourself that you are worthy of the view from above. Thank you.